March 26th. I'm stepping in for President George Lane tonight. Let's call the meeting to order. We'll start with the pledge, and Audrey, lead us in the pledge.
Right now, with your heart.
Recording in progress.
I pledge allegiance to the flag.
Thank you. Okay. Madam Secretary, can we have roll call, please?
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Division 7, Gary Van Dam.
Here.
Division 6, Audrey Miller. Division 5, Robert Paris will not be present this evening. Division 2, Keith Dias.
Yes.
Division 1, Drew Mercy.
Yes.
Division 3, Frank Donato.
Yes.
Division 4, George Lane will also not be present this evening. General Manager Knutson.
Here.
General Counsel Markman.
Here.
And Holly Hughes present.
Okay. That brings us to item 4, voluntary public roll call. If any member of the public wishes to introduce themselves, please feel free to do so now.
White Fence Farms, Jack Cephas.
Hello.
Hi, Frank.
John, you can spit.
Oh. Hello, John.
Hi, Frank.
Vincent Dino, Palmdale Water District.
Good evening, Dino.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Okay.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
Oh, okay. So we'll go to item 5. Public comments. The period open to the public. If anyone wishes to address the board on any item not on the agenda, just feel free to do this now. Okay.
Somebody has their hand raised on the Zoom call. Would you like to, do you have a question? Don Ukidstead?
No.
Okay, then.
The public and the board shall have an opportunity to comment on any of the items on the consent calendar at consent or to cover collectively by the board of directors, period, to action taken. Item number 1 will be 7A1, approved minutes of the regular board meeting of March 12th, 2024. Motion to be in order.
Approve 7A1.
Director Miller, second.
This one is the, any additions or corrections? No? Okay. Okay, we got a motion, a second. Roll call, please.
Gary Van Dam?
Yes.
Audrey Miller?
Yes.
Keith Dias?
Yes.
Drew Mercy?
Yes.
Frank Donato?
Yes. Okay, the motion passed. Okay, item 8, for consideration of possible action, the Finance Committee, I happen to be chair of that, consider possible action to accept and file check registry list for the period of February 29th through March 13th, 2024.
All right, good evening, members of the board. So on page 14 of your packet is our typical checklist for the period just mentioned by Vice President Donato. This was reviewed in detail by the Finance Committee last Thursday. It's pretty typical. We do have a large payment to DWR, just over $2 million this month for our fixed cost on the State Water project. The credit card expenses mine and Holly were reviewed by President Lane, and then I reviewed the other managers' credit card expenses. Everything else seems to be in line. Like I said, we went through it in detail with the Finance Committee. Be happy to answer any questions that the board may have on the checklist.
So we have a board order 881.
Vice President, I'll move on board order 881.
All second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
Frank Donato.
Yes. Okay. Motion carried. A2, consider possible action to accept and file the treasurer's report for the period ending February 29, 2024.
Okay, good evening, board members. This is the treasurer's report for February. Average yield to maturity for the total portfolio for February was 4.483%, which was up 0.24% from the prior month. Average days to maturity for the total portfolio was 212 days, or approximately 7 months. And total cash and investments at February 29th was $132 million, which was up about $724,000 from the prior month. So not a lot of change in the balance. And just an update to the sweep account on our checking account. We will be adding a sweep to the checking account that we went through in detail with the Finance Committee. And the sweep will sweep into the money market account that we use with our investment account. And that's earning about 5.15%. So just an update on that.
That's interesting. Unless you ask, you don't receive.
Yes. Yes.
Good job.
And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, need a motion, please?
This is Keith. I'll make a motion. We approve the treasurer's report.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any further other discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
Frank Donato.
Yes. Motion passed. Okay, it brings us to 8. Let's see, it brings us to 8B. Customer relations and public information. I know Gary's chairman.
Yeah, we've got two people here, Bill Rawlings and Giovanni Sini. Would you like to come up? We can present the,
Yeah, maybe if I could, Director Van Dam.
okay.
Before we invite the gentleman up, Pam Clark put together a couple slides just to refresh everybody why we're presenting that this evening. And then we'll ask two gentlemen to come up and see if they want to say anything. And then we have a little check that we'd like to present to them.
Okay, come
Maybe
on up,
get
Pam.
a photo op with the director.
Is this the check right here?
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Careful,
Oh,
put
yeah.
it in your wallet.
She comes in telling me I won the lottery.
Well, thank you, Matt. Good evening, members of the board. And as Matt mentioned, just a quick recap on this item. So the Antelope Valley Rural Museum's purpose is to maintain a permanent structure located at the AV Fairgrounds to preserve the rural history of the Antelope Valley. And if you'll remember back at our February 13th board meeting, the board of directors approved a $25,000 platinum level sponsorship from Avek to the Rural Museum. And that sponsorship is going to be used for phase 2 of construction for the museum, which is going to add an additional 9,000 square feet of space to their facility. And as a platinum sponsor, Avek will receive name recognition on their wood with a wood plaque on their large donor wall. You can see in the picture on the right. There's also going to be about 4.5 feet of space provided for Avek to display historical water-related items. And as Matt mentioned, AV Rural Museum's chairman, G. Simi, who I learned was also a former AVEC director, is here tonight along with Bill Rawlings, their finance officer. And they're here on behalf of the museum to accept the sponsorship. And we'll do a check presentation and love to invite them up.
I know Bill doesn't want to say anything, so I'll take his place. Coming up here brings back memories. My dad is up on the board on the right-hand side at the top, and I'm on the second row, second from the end there. We met first on Lancaster Boulevard when I first got on the board. And part of that is the purpose of the Rural Museum is to keep those memories alive. You look at this beautiful view you've got up here. Most of that wouldn't be here if it wasn't for those gentlemen up there, you, the staff, the management. That's the way it goes. And we're trying to keep that preserved in our museum. It's been a labor of love, and it's amazing the group that we have that works on this museum. There are absolutely no egos, none. We get to work and we get it done, and we sure appreciate $25,000 from this board. Thank you.
I just want to say, the check went to the bank yesterday. Thank you very much. And we look forward to our phase 2. Might be a while, but we're working on it. Thank you.
Can you, one of you tell us a little bit what's going to be put in the museum?
So our history is arrowheads to aerospace. And we actually have a mastodon bone also. So we pretty much cover anything related to Antelope Valley history. When you ask what's going to be put in the museum, does that answer your question?
Yeah. Bill, why don't you go into George Lane donating that truck?
Oh yeah, a couple of weeks ago, 1928 American LaFrance truck. When we saw it several years ago, George said, okay, you're gonna have to have your own building and it has to be indoors. So we finally let him know that we had cleared a space. And but when we saw it, it was basically in an open barn covered with dirt, bird stuff. And, you know, it looked like a great truck. But so I was really pleased when we went to pick it up. It was sitting there all shiny, perfectly restored, running. And I don't remember the gentleman's name that works for George, but he drove it on the trailer. So I understand this truck has been in many parades, but it's been quite some time. It's a big truck. It belonged to his grandfather when they had the Sand and Gravel Company. And, well, it's really impressive. So we put it right by the front door. It slams you in the face when you walk in. So anyway, that was quite a deal from George. And then also we have a water wagon that was used in 1913. It was part of a 20 mule team what do I say? Unit to bring water from the railroad out to wherever the camps were while they were building the aqueduct. And so that was George Lane's grandpa also that was the mule skinner on that train. So we have some great pictures of him going across the desert with the 20 mule team. 20 mule team wasn't just for borax. It was right here in Lancaster and Antelope Valley, wherever they were building the aqueduct.
Do you have access? I remember the gentleman was pretty young when I met him. Stubbings, the old photographs, you know. Yes. So you be putting some of those in there too?
I don't know what he had in his collection, but we have, well, it's kind of a long story, but we had a lot of Stubbings photos, obviously, from different people around the valley. But I got a phone call one day from a gentleman in New York, and it seems that Stubbings' son had been his tenant and had left a pallet load of all of his negatives. And that was to help pay the rent, which he didn't pay. So the man actually put it on a truck, shipped it to my house. So we do have a lot of Stubbings, mostly aerial, a lot of aerial photos. We haven't even been able to go through some of them. Negatives are harder to look at. Slides, negatives, prints. It's a very large palette, the Stubbings collection.
That's good. I think it's a good addition. Of course, it's always a good addition to the fair. You know, love that when you go there to see things like that. So we're happy to accommodate and.
Can we get a picture, Frank?
Yeah, why
don't you, all the board come down here and we'll get a picture with G and Bill. I think Pam's going to get a picture, right? Yeah. Maybe stand right up in front of the dais here with the Avek logo in the background. All right. Yeah, thank you. Have a good day. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, Pam.
Yeah, thanks, Pam. Good job.
Okay. That brings us to item C, Water Master and Groundwater Stewardship Committee.
Yeah, with Rob Harris as the chair of this committee, he's not available to participate this evening, but this is the opportunity that we take as a board to go through the Water Master agenda for tomorrow morning's meeting at 10 a.m. and give direction to the AVAC rep on any hot buttons on that agenda. So I'll just take a few minutes to go through what is on the agenda for tomorrow, and we'll kind of have a discussion as we go through this slide. So one item being discussed tomorrow is to give the admin staff approval to distribute the request for qualifications for a permanent administrator for the Water Master. So a little background, in January, Water Master staff began working on a draft RFQ or request for qualifications. In February, the draft RFQ was distributed to the advisory committee and the Water Master board for initial comments and review. The advisory committee had a number of comments back in February that were provided to the board and staff. Staff has incorporated all the advisory committee comments as well as the board members' comments and prepared a final draft of that RFQ. That's going to be discussed tomorrow. And like I said, hopefully get approval for distributing that RFQ. From AVAC's point of view, we feel it's a complete document. Admin staff did a good job of putting that together and addressing the comments from the public. So we support, or my recommendation is that AVAC supports distributing that RFQ. Any questions on that? All right, and we'll see where it goes from there, see how many people or firms propose on that.
I had one comment. I know Peter and Angel and yourself have done a great job, and it's just amazing how that transition has taken place from Hallmark to AVAC, and how I mean, basically there's no conflict whatsoever that I hear of. So it just goes to show that you guys are doing a great job. Thank you.
Yep, I agree. They're doing a great job. You put me in that group, but just to clarify, I'm not doing any work on the Water Master. So it's all Peter, Angel, Patty, Pam,
right,
Teresa. So they're doing a great job.
Yep. Thank you guys.
One thing, being on that committee is that when it's possible, it's so important to have local people working with the Water Master Agency.
Yeah.
Every time we go out of town, it's a fiasco. I'll be polite tonight, but basically it's like, we don't know what we're doing up here, kind of a, feeling that so anyway, when I hear that the advisory committee came forward and really liked what they're doing, that was really good news.
Yeah.
I really that's what I rely on. I mean, we all have a difference of opinion sometimes as directors, but when you have the community involved and they like it, that's the direction we should go.
Yeah. All right, good comments. Okay. So I think we're all in concurrence that we support distributing that RFQ.
Now do we need a...
We don't need to make a board motion. Okay. We'll just get a concurrence as we move along. So next slide, please. So one other item that's going to be discussed tomorrow is evaluation or review of Todd Groundwater. As you know, Todd Groundwater has been serving as Water Master engineer for the Water Master from essentially day one when they came on board. They've been doing a great job, and like I said, part of the process before the board entertains another amendment with Todd Groundwater, because their current contract amendment expired or goes through 2024. So December 24, that expires. So now we need to start talking about an amendment with Todd Groundwater for the next 3 years, 2025 through 2027. But before the board wanted to do that, they thought it'd be appropriate to do an evaluation on Todd Groundwater. So there's going to be a closed session tomorrow, and the Water Master Board can meet and kind of give their thoughts on how Todd Groundwater has been serving as Water Master engineer. Water admin staff gave the opportunity for the advisory to also weigh in on this. So the Water Master Advisory Committee met as a group and collectively put together a performance evaluation. And now that'll be in the pack, or I think it's in the packet, or the meeting tomorrow, so everybody can see that. But me personally, I recommend that this board give direction to our rep to continue with Todd Groundwater and try to work on an amendment. I think they've done a fine job serving in their role. They're good to work with. They're more than capable technically, and they do a good job with the annual report and working with all the parties within the Water Master. So that's my recommendation.
What's Gary's?
Same, I'm on that advisory committee.
Right.
And I'm speaking on the advisory committee. We felt that way also.
Yeah.
So this will be their third 3-year extension. They started 6 years ago, right?
They started probably in 2017.
2017. So.
Right. So
lost a few people along the way.
Yeah, there's been some changes within their firm.
Right.
But the folks that have taken over have done a real good job stepping up to the plate.
Mm-hmm.
It's been pretty seamless.
Right.
With that transition.
Yeah. So the advisory board's recommendation was to status quo with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think, unless I hear otherwise, it sounds like Audrey's going to say something.
Since I'm on the committee as well, Frank's on the committee, Rob's not here, but the committee did agree as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
They're doing a great job.
Mm-hmm.
And we should.
Okay, do we need to do anything?
We don't need any board action, just sounds like we have a concurrence that we want to support moving forward and give Todd a favorable evaluation. How about anything from Keith on that to add?
No, I have nothing to add. I concur with the majority.
Okay, thank you.
Matt, real quick, does Todd know that they're being reviewed?
Yeah, they do.
Okay, will they be in that?
I suspect they will not be in initially, but maybe after board goes through it, I imagine they call Todd Groundwater into the closed session and let them know their thoughts.
That's the plan.
Yeah.
Will that decision be made tomorrow then, Pete?
Yes, there's a board action item following the closed session where they review Todd. That action item would authorize Water Master staff to seek an extension with Todd.
3-year extension, so, okay.
All right. Sounds like we have concurrence on that. Next slide gets into the various applications that need to be approved or considered tomorrow. The first one is a new production. It's a single family home that has some drought tolerant cactus on the property. It's they're requesting 2 acre-feet per year. And all of these on this slide have been discussed with the advisory committee, and the advisory committee is supportive of approving all of it. Is that correct, Angel? The next group there in the middle are the various transfers. The first one is from the Nebaker Trust to Long Valley Road, which is a nursery out on the east side of 190 acre-feet of temporary carryover water. The next one is from the Selleck, I believe they're brothers, to the 40th Street Water Group in the amount of 20 acre-feet. It's also a one-time temporary carryover water transfer. And then there's the last one is a transfer between Craig Van Dam and his wife to California Compaction Corporation, which is a local contractor, grading, large grading contractor here in the valley. Been here for years. So that includes 1 permanent acre-foot of production right plus 30 acre-feet of temporary one-time carryover. So because California Compaction is not on Exhibit 4 as a original party, they need to purchase 1 acre-foot of permanent production right and intervene into the judgment to become a party. So, and then the last one is a non-production well, monitoring well only. This is for Edwards Air Force Base. No, I'm sorry, Plant 42. Yeah, U.S. Air Force at Plant 42. They're requesting a non-production well where they're going to pump groundwater, run it through a treatment plant, and then re-inject it back into the groundwater. So it's part of some contaminated water cleanup efforts that have been ongoing for many years at Plant 42. And the advisory committee also reviewed this and recommended approval. Any questions on any of those?
I had one question on the Nebaker transfer. Is it my understanding that the Nebaker ranch had sold all of its production rights?
Yeah, from what I understand, and Angel can correct me if I'm wrong here, but the Nebaker ranch was sold along with all the production rights. Nebaker's held on to some carryover. They had roughly 500 acre-feet of carryover water.
Okay.
So that's what this 190 acre-feet is coming out of, is the carryover water that they held on to.
So they'll still have 200 and...
Yeah, or roughly 300.
Was it Homer bought it?
That's correct, yeah. I believe Homer or WDS bought the ranch and the production rights.
So once these carryover rights, well, then he'll still retain, the trust will retain a little bit of carryover.
The remaining carryover, roughly 300 acres. Yeah. Yep.
Now, I have a question for the secretary. Would we, since it's not on here, should we make a correction for the minutes that is Plant 42 not Edwards Air Force Base? It's not either one, but we should identify where the location is.
Yeah, it's U.S. Air Force Plant 42.
Plant 42.
Yeah. I think I said Edwards earlier.
Yeah, well,
sorry for
first
the
name
confusion. Yeah.
Okay.
Noted.
Thank you. It's probably the first time I caught it. It's okay.
And
so anything else?
I think that's it. Sounds like we have concurrence. I believe Rob Paris is going to be AVAC's representative tomorrow. He's going to be at the Water Master meeting. So he is listening in. He can't participate, but he's hearing the discussion. So he knows which way to vote tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay.
So Matt, real quick on that 2 acre feet to that Jesse. Now he'll pay so much per acre foot, correct? Even though he has the right to pump up to 3 acre feet.
Yeah, he's required, and Angel can jump in here. He's required to put a meter on his well,
right.
And then he has to pay his assessments and replacement water assessments on all water pumps.
On all water pump. And he's allowed to pump up to, so if he pumps over 3 acre feet, he'll pay replacement cost at that time, or how's that work?
He's allowed to pump up to 2 acre feet of water per year, but he has to pay replacement water for all water.
Okay, yeah, because he wasn't a part of the original pumping rights, correct? Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
All right, and I think that's it. It's pretty light agenda tomorrow, but admin staff is doing a good job.
Okay. So bring this to item D, planning and AV Water State Water Contract Committee. So who's gonna?
So Rob Harris is the chair of that committee. I can, if we want Keith to lead that, or I'm happy to jump in.
This is Keith. Yes, I attended the meeting, but I will let Pete make the presentation.
All right. Thank you, Director Dias. Good evening, board. Holly, could you advance the slide? Thank you. So we're looking at repurposing the leftover funds from the Big Rock feasibility study and utilizing those funds through the AV State Water Contractors to advance the Little Rock Creek recharge project. And what you see in front of you is a breakdown of the funds that were originally distributed to the association for use for the Big Rock project. And then the amount that's left over. And that highlighted amount is AVEC's remaining funds left over from the Big Rock feasibility study. So that's $18,858.73. So what we're asking for tonight is to allow the association to move those funds out of the restricted funds for the Big Rock Creek study into the Little Rock Creek recharge project study. So, but it was discussed at the committee level that it'd be good to have a refresher on Big Rock Creek project, where that ended up, and have a brief discussion on the Little Rock project. So I'm going to jump into that. Holly, could you advance the slide? Thank you. So in 2019, we performed a run of the creek pilot. And by we, I mean Palmdale Water District, AVEC, and Little Rock Creek Irrigation District through the association. The pilot was minimally successful because we were competing with Mother Nature and the flows were going over Avenue T. So we had to dial back the amount of water that we were able to recharge. So then we entered into a feasibility study with Kennedy Jenks to find out if there were some alternatives that we could do in that area to utilize the turnout that's right there at Big Rock Creek, and try to get some recharge water in there. So that study was completed in 2023, and it came in under budget. And that's why we have those remaining funds left over for the Big Rock Creek feasibility study. There were two options that were identified as promising. The first one was putting in culverts. So those culverts would go in at Avenue T and Palmdale Boulevard and essentially allow the water in the creek to flow further and have a longer recharge path. We'd be able to get in somewhere around 2,000 acre feet is what the estimated amount is. So it's not a high volume recharge, but it could be a useful outlet when we have those Article 21 years like we had last year. And it also provides that dual purpose of eliminating those flooded streets that we get in those areas on Palmdale Boulevard and Avenue T. There was off-stream recharge, and that was promising you could put in more water, get more percolated in. There was estimates of up to 30,000 acre feet a year, but Avek doesn't have the capacity after Pear Blossom Highway or Pear Blossom Pumping Plant to deliver that volume. So we would have to do it in conjunction with another state water contractor. We've looked at that, and Metropolitan had some interest, and Mojave Water Agency had some interest, but they are both pursuing projects that have a higher value to them right now. So it's a maybe later scenario with that. And currently we're exploring grant opportunities to do culverts for the Big Rock project, potentially to help the Little Rock project go further, and then also to help the Upper Amargosa project recharge naturally in the creek as well. So we may be moving on with that Big Rock Creek option 1 that came out of the feasibility study. So that's a rundown on Big Rock Creek. And next slide, Holly, talks briefly about the Little Rock Creek project. So we did a pilot last year, and about 9,000 acre feet was recharged. So much more successful than the Big Rock pilot. We were able to do it just in stream, and the ground is greedy out there. It soaked it up really fast. It was really successful. In February, our board approved the MOU to develop the Little Rock project further and make it an approved project that we have CEQA approval for and our master approval for. We're estimating that cost to come in between $20,000 and $50,000. The reason why it's so cheap is that it's essentially just opening up Little Rock Creek Irrigation District's outlet from the state water project and letting it run down the creek. And we don't have to disturb the ground. We don't have to build structures or anything like that. So this would be just for CEQA work and for developing the storage agreement with the water master. And we'd have a ready to go recharge project. So there's a hope that if we repurpose the funds, both AVEC and Palmdale, that we'll have enough money left over from those funds to complete this project, this Little Rock project. And I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
I have a comment.
Yeah.
As long as I've been on this board, I just can't understand between the county and ourselves that we don't build conduit underneath Palmdale Boulevard and let the water run year round out of there. I mean, it's just a perfect spot. It benefits Edwards Air Force Base a lot, from what I understand, as well. So, we need to look at possibilities of grant money to do that project. And I think we need to be a little more aggressive with that, because I think it was JK did it 20 years ago, 30 years ago. I think that's the #1 recharge area in the entire valley. It was like 1, 2, Amargosa was like 3, and Kings Canyon area, I think, was #4, something like that. There's a study that's out there that did it, and so I don't understand why it's not. I mean, I think it should be done. And all I hear is excuses. The water's running Palmdale Boulevard, and it's a hazard. Well, we can correct that hazard. Slice out the dang thing and run, underground, pipes, and then, you don't have that problem anymore.
Yeah, I'm very hopeful that we'll be able to do something like that through the A.B. Irwin group.
One other question, I heard in Little Rock, did they catch a northern pike in there? Not becoming a danger.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
What, did we get an estimate on those culverts? What the cost us?
Yeah, in 2023, it was estimated just for the Big Rock Creek project, between, I think it was between $100,000 and $300,000 to do the culverts.
Okay.
So pretty affordable for what it would deliver.
Right. So now what you're saying is if we did do that, we don't have the right to then retain all that water ourselves? We gotta share that water with Roseland? I mean.
Oh, no. It would be a great benefit to Avek if we did the culverts. It would allow that water to go further.
Right.
And reach and essentially give us a bigger recharge space. So we'd be able to flow at a higher volume and recharge more. So be a direct benefit to Avek.
Right. But what were you saying about Mojave having being a partner on that?
Yes. So with Big Rock, one of the issues we have is that the turnout for the State Water Project for Big Rock Creek is after the Pear Blossom pumping plant.
Okay.
So Avek has substantial capacity up to the pumping plant, but after it, we've only got about, I think it's between 1 and 2 CFS of dedicated capacity.
Mm-hmm.
So not a whole lot. And when we would use it would be when it's wet, when other state water contractors are also using that capacity. So that's where we would need to partner with another agency to essentially utilize their capacity to deliver water to the project.
And I believe they're talking about Mojave Water Agency towards Victorville.
MWA?
Yep, that's correct. Thank you, Audrey.
Right? Not the one big part.
Right. I believe we took a tour. Remember when Kirby?
Oh, yeah.
GM? Yeah, he gave us a tour. Were you on that, Frank? We all took a tour out there at NWA. Ended up out there in Daggett.
Oh, yeah.
Remember Indiana? What was that?
There's by 29 palms.
Yeah, there's 5 basins out there, I believe.
Right. Yeah. It's a huge area.
Yeah, the Baja Basin. We ended up at what they call the Baja Basin.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of them is I think they're reduced down to 15%. They've got 85% of their water taken away. Wasn't that the Baja, the last one?
I can't remember.
I believe so.
I think it runs into Cadiz too, doesn't it?
Yeah, it doesn't go quite that far east, but it's kind of between here and Cadiz.
But they story they told us sound like a moon explanation how they get their water.
Yeah. Yeah, for Cadiz.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mr. Vice President, I have a question for Pete. The culverts under county roads, why isn't the county partnering up with having that happen? Why does that end up on the water contractors to put in culverts? Or will they work with us?
That's an excellent question, Director Miller. We're in talks with the county to partner on that project through AVOs right now. So they've come around and they're working on it with us.
Okay.
Yeah. And we had a recent meeting and they have their grant team involved in getting all the details and heavily looking at grants to do that work. Yeah.
Yeah, they should be.
Yeah, they're doing a good job there.
Thank you.
So we're looking for board order 8D1 to authorize reallocate or allocating those funds left over from Big Rock.
This is Keith. I'll make a motion. We approve board order 8D1.
I'll second.
Okay, we got Keith and Drew, correct? First, we got a motion and a second. All in favor? Say aye. Roll call.
Gary,
Can I ask a question?
Oh, go ahead.
So there's no possibility that we're gonna need that money towards, the Big Rock Creek project at all? Is it just design money or?
That money was just set aside for the study, so not really to any construction or design. And there isn't any foreseeable cost for Big Rock until we go down the grant projects area with the culverts, or we get another partner to do the off-channel recharge. So it was probably years off before we develop that project and need more money.
So if the money's moved over to Little Rock, does it just get used for study money?
This will be for CEQA and for the storage agreement with Watermaster.
And it can be used for those purposes?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Good question, Audrey. How long will it take to get that grant? 5 years?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Did I hear that right?
It'll probably take us, I don't know. That's a good question, but I wouldn't anticipate that it'll be a speedy process.
Right. So when are we going to start that?
We're starting it. We've already started the process.
Okay.
So we're working with LA County and we're going through the AVR1 group and we're working on getting that grant.
Right. Yeah, you'd think there'd be something through, like Frank said, through Caltrans, where, I mean, every time it snows, is that T or Palmdale Boulevard? Are they both the same?
All of them. But,
Yeah, they all flood out. So, you can't, a lot of times they'll even close the road over there and got to go around to 138.
Right.
So it's definitely something that should be brought to their attention.
yeah, isn't Jay a county road? Or is it county or state?
No, it'd be county. Avenue J?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Seek all possibilities. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so call for any questions.
Okay. Roll call vote, please.
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
Frank Donato.
Yes. Motion passed. Okay. 8D2, update on SCADA system. I'm gonna let our engineer give us an update on that.
All right.
Okay.
Good to go. All right. Good evening, Vice President Donato, members of the board. We had a planning committee meeting and went through and kind of just an informational update on where we're at with the SCADA system integrator request for proposals project, and thought it would be good because it's been a while since we've talked about this as we've gone through some of the process. It'd be good to provide an update to the entire board on where we're at. So just to start with kind of what is SCADA, we've talked about this a few times before, but it's sort of the operational interface between our plant operators and the treatment plants themselves. So allows them to make adjustments to chemical dosages, pump speeds, turn things on and off. And so it's a computer program essentially that helps them operate their facility. Back in 2021, the board entered a contract with Black & Veatch, an engineering firm, familiar with various SCADA programs, as well as Automation Services, who you might know better as Jeff Adler, our existing SCADA consultant that's been with Avek since the 1990s. So the contract was to have them evaluate the leading SCADA software packages on the market so that we could implement something that's more widely supported than the current SCADA program that we've been using. That program was developed and is really just supported by Jeff Adler and Automation Services. And at some point in time, the board acknowledged that, he's going to be ready to retire. So we need something that's a little bit more widely supported in the industry. So through that process, Black & Veatch and staff and Automation Services evaluated 19 of the industry leading SCADA programs and thoroughly evaluated each of those against Avek's needs. And the outcome of that was that in May of last year, the board chose to select a program called Ignition by Inductive Automation as Avek's new SCADA software package. And so at that same time, with that SCADA package being selected, the board also authorized staff to issue a request for qualifications for the SCADA system integrators. So that's the team of engineering professionals that will come in and actually implement that system and do all the programming required to operate our treatment facilities. So we went down that path. You know, it's a pretty lengthy process to develop and solicit those integrators. We directly advertised the RFQ package to 34 different integration firms, and also advertised that on the agency website. Out of that, we got 10 firms to come here and attend a mandatory pre-proposal meeting. So we got to kind of give them an overview of what we were looking to do, and also took them on a tour of both the Quartzville Water Treatment Plant as well as the Eastside Water Treatment Plant and Eastside Water Bank, so they could be familiar with the facilities that they'll be working at. Out of that, we had 7 firms that provided their statements of qualifications. And then those were evaluated on the basis of what was included in the RFQ, but we looked at the qualifications of both the firm as well as the project team members that they plan to dedicate to this project. We looked at their project experience with similar types of facilities and implementations, also their approach, how they plan to implement for AVEC, and then also their rate schedule. And so part of this process was establishing what their rates for individual staff members were and establishing a maximum escalator of 3% as we continue through the task order process of implementing this at our various facilities. So of those 7 proposals, 4 of them really stood out. We had a scoring on 0 to 100 basis on those various categories. 4 of them scored between 78 and 88 out of 100. The other 3 scored lower, and so we eliminated those from consideration. The 4 that were remaining, we asked them to then respond to a detailed request for proposals so that we could get an actual fee on what it might cost to complete the first task, which is implementation of the SCADA program at our Eastside Water Treatment Plant and Eastside Water Bank. And so the thought process through that is that we just give them a piece of the job to start, and then, you know, hopefully they perform well. But if we don't like anything that they do, if they're not performing the way we expect them to, we can move on and select a different firm if we need to go through and implement the remaining facilities, you know, here at AVEC. So part of that process is to develop a set of standards and templates that they would then give to us. And so if anything happened, we could take that work product to another firm. We really don't think that'll happen. We've got very good proposals that we received, and these are all good firms. But as you can see in the table, you can see the fee that they've included. It's a pretty tight span, $385,000 to $549,000 across the 4. And you can see their scores, and as I mentioned before, between 78 and 88 out of 100. So these are all very well qualified firms. But after looking at both the RFQs as well as the request for proposals with their fee, AVEC staff and Jeff Adler, our automation services consultant, felt comfortable eliminating the lowest 2 scorers from the RFQ process, who also happened to be one of the mid-range fees as well as the highest fee out of the 4. So we feel very comfortable moving forward to the next step with the 2 firms that had the highest RFQ scores, which is a firm called APCO and another firm called Vertec. They're both very well versed in implementing ignition in specific at water treatment facilities. So they've got a lot of good experience. But before we come back to the committee and the board with a strong recommendation on which of the 2 firms we want to move forward with, we want to meet with them first. So we have planned meetings to meet with these folks and the team members that they plan to dedicate to the project. And we like to just ask them some questions about, you know, their planned approach, if they saw anything in the scope of work that was, you know, maybe overblown, you know, that overstated, that we could maybe reduce the fee a little bit, or if there was anything missing that we're not seeing, so that we can make sure that we identify that and have a firm full proposal when we come back to the committee and board. And we'd also just like to meet with the folks that we're going to be working with so we can get a sense of comfort with them and use that as kind of the final component of our evaluation. So, that's it for as much of an update, but be happy to answer any questions that you have. I think it's been a very thorough evaluation process, and I think we're on the right track to select the right firm for Avek and for our selected future SCADA system. So be happy to answer any questions.
I've got a question.
Yeah.
On, have they worked for anybody else that we've previously done business with, or
no,
jumping out there on our own, or?
Yeah, I mean, they all provided references and other water treatment plant type of facilities that they've worked for. And so certainly before we come back with a strong recommendation, we will call all of their references after we meet with them. But no super local, nobody in the Antelope Valley that any of these folks have worked with.
Okay. And also what, so they're negotiable on the price. It sounds like you're going to negotiate a discounted price with them.
Yeah, so it's all based on the number of hours, because their hours are going to be set based on, what they provided. So they look at the work and see how many hours do we think it's going to take us to do this task, right? And then they set the number of hours, which then relates to the fee. So that's anything in the scope of work that we put together that, maybe we're overthinking it or something, then they might, be able to reduce their fee once they get a little better handle. So they may have some questions for us as well.
Right. How much are we paying Jeff right now?
Jeff's kind of on call. Yeah. Yeah. Jeff's sort of on an on-call basis for us. So when we need him, he comes out and does work for us. A lot of it stuff that he does is remote, and then we pay him whatever his hourly rate is for that work. So we don't have an annual contract or anything with him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And you don't see that being able to happen here where we don't need them full time like that?
Yeah, probably going forward is what we'll shoot for, kind of an on-call services, and we'll have to see how that plays out. Right. This in particular is just for that initial implementation of the system. And so we really need a firm that's going to take ownership of that from start to finish and get that whole thing done. So we can't really piecemeal this portion of it, but then as we go forward and it's implemented, we will be looking for that long-term support. And that'll be something separate that we tackle.
And then you're wanting to lock them in for a certain amount of time?
Yeah, this is going to be on a task order basis. So the first task order will be Eastside Treatment Plant in the water bank. If they perform well, then we'll put together another scope of work package that we'll ask them to propose on for like the Quartz Hill Water Treatment Plant or the Westside Water Bank. And we'll see what their fee looks like. We can do that same kind of negotiation on the hours to come to a final fee. And each of those steps along the way will be brought back to the committee and board as we move forward with those.
Right. So basically they'd be working without a long-term contract.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Although the RFQ and the contract will establish their maximum rate escalator. So they'll have a per task order contract, but their rates will be locked in for a longer term. Yeah.
I see. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yep.
I have a question. There is quite the gap between those two companies, 385 to 514.
Yeah.
Is their scope of work different, or is it all set?
Yeah, the scope of work is the same as far as what they saw when they put their fees together, but that is one of the things we want to talk to them about. If, APCO, they saw something differently. I know they had a lot of their fee was in the upfront work to develop some of the templates and standards that then they would progress that to fit Eastside Treatment Plant, but then they would also be able to use those templates to fit Quartz Hill and Westside Water Bank and Rosamond. So we want to talk to them a little bit about what that approach looks like and see if, even if their fee up front is a little bit higher to do that initial setup work, maybe we get a lower fee on those future treatment facilities if they perform well, on the implementation of those, because they do have that work up front. Or maybe they're accounting for, something that we didn't see, or maybe they're overthinking it. So that's why we want to have a conversation before we select one of these firms.
And do you check the company itself for the length of time they've been a company?
Yeah.
The stability of the company?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll do a little bit more digging and due diligence after we meet with them before we come back with a recommendation. But at the high level, looking through their RFQs, which included a lot of history on their company and a lot of the other projects that they've worked on, all four of these firms really look fairly good, but Vertec and APCO really rose to the top when it came to their prior experience and the strength of their company.
Definitely check the
Yeah, we definitely will. Yeah.
So, excuse me, are you done? So are we leaning towards one company at this time?
Not really. They both have some pros and cons at this time. I mean, Vertec, obviously the low fee is attractive. But then on the other hand, APCO has experience with our existing SCADA system that we operate. They actually they have a gentleman on their team that has worked with our SCADA guy in the past. So he's got some experience with our existing program, which, could carry some weight. I mean, it might make it easier in switching over from one system to the other. So, it's sort of a toss-up at this point in time, and we don't necessarily want the fee to drive everything because we want to make sure we're working with the right consultant. But, it will factor in the end. But that's why we want to kind of meet with both of them.
All right. Thanks, Justin.
Okay.
So just an update this evening as where we're at. There'll be an action item in the future.
The report.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, that brings us item number 9, general manager report.
Thank you.
On water supply projects and programs.
Yeah, just a couple slides for me, and then I'll turn it over to Peter. So we went over this with the finance committee last week, but we're starting to get into budget cycle and put this little planner schedule together. On the far left are the different components that go into developing the overall budget for the agency. In the middle, kind of a summary of what's included with each of those budget items. And then our proposed committee assignments that's going to review each of those budget components and our target month that those are going to be reviewed. So just real quickly, we have, memberships, our capital improvement program that goes into the budget, our informational technology, which includes the SCADA that we just talked about, and our overall computer systems, our personnel budget, which includes salaries and health benefits and our cost of living adjustment consideration, our operating budget, which includes our chemical costs, pumping costs, variable state water project costs. And we've just recently, this last year, we've developed a separate high desert water bank operating budget, which is reimbursed by Metropolitan Water District. We're going to review our water rates to see how we're tracking compared to our plan that we put together last year. And then, of course, our big expense being the fixed costs on the state water project. So, and then our goal is to pull all that together through committees and then present the final budget to the full board in July. So just informational item that we wanted to share this evening. Next, I'll turn it over to Peter. He's going to talk about water supply.
All right. Good evening again, board. Some happy news. We got our bump up from 15% to 30% allocation. And that's due in large part to those storms that brought in the snow that raised it back to an average snowpack. Also, they're anticipating better runoff. However, part of the reason why it's only 30% is we're still having issue with steelhead. We had the issue with the smelt earlier. So there's still that slowdown at the pump. So they're having a hard time committing to a larger allocation at this time. I'm hopeful with some of the weather that's coming in that maybe we'll have another opportunity to build up more snowpack and increase the allocation a little further. Yeah, in fact, it looks like we've got almost 3 inches of precipitation coming into the northern Sierras in the next 10 days. So it'll be a good way to finish the water year. All right. And with that, we want to talk just daylight what supply we have available to us. So last year was a great year for banking, and some of the transfers brought in extra groundwater. And so even at a 30% allocation, we're in very good shape. So that first column is the balance that we have available to us in 2024. So that's over 43,000 acre feet of table A. We have 28,000 plus acre feet of carryover in San Luis Reservoir. We have that 98,000 acre feet of bank stored imported water, as well as 28,000 acre feet of groundwater rights that we are part of Avek's rights, but also some of the water that we transferred for last year when we made some transfers with our table A. And then we have that dry year water that's available to us in the Strand Ranch as well. That second column shows how much we could pull of that water in this year. But as you can see, with 43,000 acre feet of table A and a demand close to 40,000 acre feet, we're in good shape going into the year. So as we move forward and the allocation solidifies, we'll begin talking about what the plan is with the water sources that we have as we move into the year. Is there anything you want to add to that, Matt?
No, I think you summarized it well. So we'll see what happens over the next couple months. And then like Pete said, we'll bring back a final plan to get board concurrence on, how much we store in San Luis for 2025, how much we want to possibly bank, maybe some return obligations, etc. So we'll bring back a plan when we have a final allocation.
I think they're expecting in the next 3 to 5 days of more snow up in the Sierras.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we're probably going to
maybe get another bump in allocation.
What's the capacity right now in San Luis?
Total volume in there? It's about, what's it?
Can't remember total volume, but we're only about, State Water Project's only about half stored. So they have about 500,000 of their million acre feet available to them. So there's plenty of room for us to store water in San Luis without risk of spill.
With AVAC's state water contract, we can contractually store 36,000 acre feet in San Luis. Yeah, but that's our contract amount. I mean, we can overstore, but that starts to get complicated. But
right. Yeah, I just remember when that thing was full, we were going to lose that water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, uh-oh.
I don't think we have a risk of that this year.
It doesn't look like it. Yeah.
Orville all the way.
Orville is actually pretty full.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Thank you,
That
Pete.
concludes it.
Thanks. Last slide here for GM report. Just a few things. We talked about the Water Master meeting tomorrow at 10 a.m. here at AVAC. Just a reminder, if you haven't gotten your Form 700s into Holly, those are due by the April 2nd? Next Tuesday. And then we do have an Antelope Valley State Water Contractors meeting here at AVAC coming up on April 11th at 6 p.m. It's not on the list here, but we do have a tour scheduled for Friday of this week for the Eastside Water Treatment Plant and Eastside Water Bank. So I know a number of you have confirmed attendance for that tour, but that's scheduled for Friday. All right.
And then if we couldn't make that one, you were having one Wednesday also?
Yeah, we're going to shoot for a follow-up one if you can't make that for a week from tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. And that's all I have to report unless you have any questions for me.
I had one question on the Water Master. Did we ever evaluate the aquifer or material harm, the basin? Where was our number? We talked about getting a number for the pumpers.
So there's the annual report that gets done each year that kind of assesses the health of the basin.
Yeah.
Whether it's right, water levels are coming up or stabilizing.
Right.
And then when it comes to material injury, part of Todd Groundwater's scope of work is to update the model that they use to perform the material injury. Okay. So that I think they're scheduled to have that completed this year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was the water levels coming up, Matt, or what?
There's different areas of rise and lowering. I think the upcoming report should show favorable because it takes into account all of 23. You know, it's a 2023 report, right. And there was significant runoff from Big Rock and Little Rock and these different natural recharge areas. Like also, AVAC banked a lot of water last year.
10% lead behind.
Yeah.
Right, and we're not running the pumps pulling that out.
Yeah, and we're not recovering. We're using all surface water through the plant. So I think the upcoming annual report will probably show favorable, would be my guess.
When was that coming out?
The draft will probably come out in June. But in July. So maybe a draft in May, and then it needs to get approved by the board in July because it has to be submitted to the court by August 1st.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. That brings us to item 10, the director's report. And none? How about you, Keith?
Good.
No report, thank you.
Real quick, we have our Poppy Festival coming up. Fairgrounds, 3 days. During the dates on that.
Yeah, the 18th. No, it's Thursday, 18th, 19th. Is it?
Yes.
Okay, so the Thursday the 18th to Sunday the 21st.
Yeah.
Good opportunity to see the Rural Museum.
Right. Hopefully we'll have some poppies out. So.
Yeah.
The wind is.
What's that?
The wind is sure out.
Yeah.
Article I read was predicting good poppy years.
Yeah.
Okay, bring us to item 11, our attorney's report. I think that's
no reports, Frank.
Okay. And request for future agenda items? None? Okay. Do we have a reason to go in closed session?
Yeah, it's going to be real brief, but we can go.
What item?
Item A, 13A.
Okay.
I'm recused on that, so I'll wait out here.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, do we need a motion to go into closed session?
Mr. Vice President, I'll move to go into closed session.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
Frank Donato.
Yes. Motion passed. About a 5-minute intermission here.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Hey, Holly,
Yes.
am I, that CV, is that what that is?
Yes. Are you recused?
I believe I am, so I'll say good night.
All right. Good night, Jim.
Jim.
Thanks.